Welcome. In this clip, I'll be talking about the content helper. The content helper is a window that's designed to help expedite the extraction of information about people, places, and events from the texts. In this example, I'm going to be using the SSDA Cuba project, so I'll go ahead and open that. And the document that we'll be looking at, or the volume, is a baptism record from 1590 to 1600. I'll be looking at just one entry in here, and I've got a sample that's reasonably good to look at, folio 4 recto. If we look at the image, the one that we're going to be looking at is this second entry right here. If I go to the text for that one, you can see this is the entry right here. Now, a couple things about this. You see this name is abbreviated. We have a name here abbreviated as well. So what we're going to want to do is use the normalized version of this text to clean it up, so we have the whole standardized version of what we're doing here. So again, this chunk right here is the text that we're going to be working with. Now, normally you could go ahead and manually enter people directly out of here in the people window, but the content helper, like I said, is what kind of helps that process a little bit. So you open it up by clicking on the content helper toolbar item, and this is what opens up. And what you see here, to start off in general, is these separate blocks, and these blocks correspond to different people who may be present or may be involved in a given event. The person in this case, since this is for a baptism, we have the person being baptized as the self, an official presiding over it, up to 3 owners, slave holders that could be added, parents, godparents, and then a scribe if that's appropriate as well. What I'll do to start off with is just go over how these blocks work and what's going on with this. So we'll focus on just this one sample one. Now, if we look back at the text, we have the person being baptized. So I'm just going to go ahead and manually type it in here. And that's all there is to it. If you have a surname, you can type that in as well. You can enter the gender. In this case, if you have a color that you know or don't know, you can pick it. I'll go ahead and pick one just as a show how that works. Now, these characteristics here, the color and status and ethnicity, are based on what's set up for this particular project, and those will vary depending on your given project. In this case, we do know that this person is enslaved, so I'll pick that. Ethnicity unknown, infant. In this case, probably is an infant because we have the parent listed here as well. So you can pick that age category. And then also this checkbox to say whether the person is present at the event. And in this case, the person being baptized likely was. You'll notice with slave owners that by default they are not set to present. If there's further information in the document that may indicate that they were present, then you can check that. You can also enter an age. In this case, if we know a person is 10, you can enter 10. If you think they are about 10 or some age, you can click that little sign there and change it to an about, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or exactly equal to. In this case, in this particular record, we really don't know, so I'm just going to leave that blank. Now, in some cases, we actually have an exact birth date. What you can do then is you can switch to date of birth mode and type in an exact birth date right here. In our case, I'll just switch back to the age mode but leave it blank. So that's really all there is to filling one of these out, but that is a little bit tedious. What I'm going to do is reset this by clicking on this reset icon. Reset it back to where it was. Now I'll show you some other options for entering these names in here. Let's say I want to enter the mother's name. I can highlight it and I can drag and drop it in here and it will fill that name out for me. And you notice also that it split the name into a first and last name right there. I can also pick a longer name. This is a godparent, so I'll drop this one in here. And you notice it splits it out, but also in this case, it knew that that name was male, so it figured that out and set this up for us. We have a list of over 20,000 names that it can pick from, and it will try and guess the gender based on that. Now you also notice how it split the name between the given name and the surname. You can right-click and reparse this as well, and it'll do a different alternative splitting and parsing of that name. So you kind of have that option available to you if you want to do that. I'll reset this one as well. Now, what I did there was just drag these names and drop them over into here. Now, another option you have is you can highlight a name, right click, go to copy to content helper, and then paste it in to a block, and it'll fill in that first block for you. In this case, you see it's the same as if I would have dragged and dropped it on there. It does the same type of thing. Now, quite often, however, you may have your content helper on a separate window from your text just because you want to be able to see more. So one of the other options we have here is this quick click option. And this is a little window that comes up that lets you kind of fairly easily enter this information into here. So what I'm going to do is go through this particular one, just show you how that works. I'm going to highlight the person being baptized and click self, and you notice it adds it in. Highlight the mother, so that's a parent. In this case, she is the slave of this person here, so we're going to add him in as an owner. We don't know the father. We do know a godparent, so I'll click that. We know another godparent, so I'll add that. And we know another slaveholder. This is the slave owner of the godmother. So he's another owner. Now you notice these blocks get filled out with the names, and if I move around you can see they get highlighted, but you also see that some of these have this green bar added onto them. What that is saying that this person, this slave owner in this case, is expecting some related person. So this is this person right here, and he is the slave owner of Gregoria, if I pronounce that correct. So what I do is I go to her block and I drag her, click and drag and drop, and now that sets up a relationship between those two. So you notice when I'm over his block now, it's a blue highlight, but on hers it's now an orange highlight. So you can see that those two are related. If I move over hers, you can see that reciprocal relationship as well. I can also just hover over this and it shows the related person name in that pop-up. Now, the parent and these other owners are expecting relationships. So the parent is the parent of the person being baptized. So I'll drag that person down there, drag here, and then this other owner is the owner of Maria. So I will click on Maria and drop her there. So now we've established all these relationships. And if I go to the person being baptized, you see there are quite a few. Now also implicitly, since the mother is a slave, we will assume the child is as well. So I'll drag the child there. So now when I hover over the child, you can see 4 other orange blocks highlighted, indicating the relationships. Now there's one, so I'm going to close, well, I will show this one other thing. You can also highlight the date and click date, and it will interpret the date based on a given language. In this case it's Spanish, so it interprets it as Spanish and fills out the date for you. So now what I will do is close this down, the content helper, and I'll show you one more thing that or a few more things you can set up on here. First, you're going to indicate if the child is legitimate or not. In this case, we don't have a father, so we assume the child is not legitimate. If we did have a spouse and we clicked legitimate, it would also create a spousal relationship between the two parents. If the godparents happen to be married, you can click that and it would create a spousal relationship between them as well. In this case, there's no indication of that, so we won't set it. The other piece of information that's useful is the location. One way to add or set the location is to open the map viewer, which we saw previously, and just drag a location and drop it onto here, and that will set it. Another option you have, though, is to click this, which inherits the location. Now, if I go back to the main document, in the summary, you can see that this is where that document was located at a particular time. So since January 1st, 1590, it's been located at this particular location. So what that implies is this page was also at that location, therefore the baptism occurred there as well. So what I can do is simply click on that and it'll grab that location based on where the document was located at the time. Now, when you're all done and you have all this set up, you can click the process button and it'll go through and create information for all the people, create all the relationships, identify where the event occurred, and create references to this document for all these people. But one of the things I've done here intentionally is I've left off the official. So what will happen here is if I click process, it's going to warn me that no official has been specified, and I can proceed without specifying it, but in this case I don't want to proceed because I do want to add the official. And one of the reasons I want to do that is I will take the official and just drag and drop them up here, and you'll notice that we have an indication that there's already a person existing with this name. In this case, he's a church official who's presided over several baptisms and will preside over several more, so we probably don't want to create a new one. But if I wanted to check on it, I can click the little icon there and look at him and then see if he looks like the right person. And in this case, he probably looks like the right person. He attended a bunch of events and he has several references, so we could go and look at those events. But what these are the baptisms that he's presided over. So what that means is we want to use the same person. We don't want to create a new one. So what I can do is right click and use the existing person. So it changes that. So now when I process this, it won't make a new record. It'll use the record that we already have in the system. So this time I'll click process, and it's saying just verifying where it's going to add it, which reference it's going to be. And I'll click yes, and you'll notice down at the bottom it goes through telling you what's going on here. So it's setting up references, snapshots, events, and so forth. Now it's done. So when it's all done, what we can do is look at the extracted content for this document, and you see these people. So these are the ones that we just added out of here. So if I go to this Cristobal, you can see the related people as were pulled out of here. We can also see the event. This is her baptism event and the people who are attending the event. You notice that the slave owners are not listed in the attendees, but they are listed as the slave holder for her here. You can also see it's added the reference, so we now have a reference for that person created. So we have all the relationships between the people, we know where the event occurred, and we have references and so forth. If I then go to, I can quickly jump to that slave owner and notice that this person actually has a couple of other another slave as well. So I'll back up and go back to the person being baptized. So anyhow, you can see those are all set up and that information is in place there. So that's how it works with the content helper. It's just designed to make this a quick process. In this case, this is the baptism one. There are separate ones, different customizable ones for marriages, burials, deaths, and whatever other event that you may want to create one for.